Hi Facebook, this is Ru from Right Side Accounting Solutions. Welcome to another live session for us. Now, today we will talk about, like I said in the last live session, we will talk about how both government is going to affect your finances in the up and coming election. We will talk about those policies to three different groups of people, to three different groups of voters. They are namely individual taxpayers, property investors, and small business owners. Now, I've made up these little signs as well, and hopefully that will help you differentiate between the two governments as we kept talking going forward. So let's dive right into it. Now, first group is individual taxpayers. Now, we've talked about this in our last live session. What the Liberal government is bringing in is the low to medium income tax offset. So this is different from the current low income tax offset that we've got in place. Now, we are expecting this to come through as soon as the next tax return. So when you do your next tax return for the 18-19 financial year, it should come through. For those earning up to $90,000, you should expect a $1,080 extra in your tax refund. So that's one of the first ones that the Liberal government is bringing in. On top of that, they are also increasing the low income tax offset to $700 by 2023. So that's the next one that the Liberal government is bringing to us. Now, the third one, again, I've brought this up in our last live session, is that by 2025, the Liberal government is looking at abolishing the 37 cents in a dollar tax bracket and introducing a 30 cents in a dollar tax bracket. So if you're earning between $45,000 to $200,000, your income tax will be capped at 30%. So what is the Labor government trying to do then? Now, the Labor government is not going to follow through with abolishing the 37 cents in a dollar tax bracket, and they're not going to introduce a new 30 cents in a dollar tax bracket. So that's one of the major differences between the two governments so far. However, they are going to match Liberals' low to middle income tax offset, which is the one that I've said, this will probably be introduced as soon as your next tax return. Now, for those that are in the higher tax bracket, so if you're earning 180 and above, what the Labor government is trying to reintroduce is what we've got 2 years ago. If you remember, 2 years ago, we have got the levy which they named it the budget repair levy. Now they are looking at reintroducing that levy for the highest tax bracket payer. So if you're earning more than $180,000, you'll be paying 2% extra on your highest tax bracket. So essentially you're paying about 49% if you're earning 180 and above. Also, one of the more significant policies that the Labor government is bringing out is that they are looking at removing excess franking credits if you are not paying tax to start with, and this will start as soon as 1st of July 2019. Now, traditionally, so currently the policy is if you're earning $18,000 and below, and if your sole income is receiving dividends that has franking credit attached to it, you will receive the full franking credit into your pocket. Now, the Labor government is suggesting that you shouldn't be receiving those franking credits if you're already not paying any tax. And this is one of the more significant ones that the Labor government is bringing through this election. So that's the first group of voters that we're talking about, individual taxpayers, which is probably majority of you listening out there today. Now, the second group of people that we would like to tackle in is the property investors. Now, Liberal government currently hasn't really brought in anything different compared to the last budget or the last election, which means the two things that are more significant rolling forward from last year would be, no depreciation on plant and equipment for second-hand properties, and we can obviously no longer deduct travel expenses against our investment properties. So those two will still get rolled forward to next year. That is what we were expecting from the Liberal government. Now, Labor government, quite a bit to talk about here. One of the biggest thing that they're bringing in is that they are trying to remove negative gearing for property investors. Now, What they are saying at the moment is that this does not affect people that already have investment properties, and it will not affect those that are buying brand new properties. Now, I'll briefly explain how it works quickly. Currently, with our negative gearing policy, if you've got a property that's suffering from a loss, that loss can go against your pay-as-you-go income, and essentially you are paying less tax to the tax office, which is probably why some people would receive a huge chunk of refund in your pocket at the end of tax year. Now, what Labor is trying to do is that you can't use this loss to offset against your pay-as-you-go income. They are saying that you can use this loss to offset against any other positive investment, but you just can't offset it against any pay-as-you-go income. Now, this is an interesting one because as early as this morning, when we actually saw a piece of news from the Adelaide's newspaper saying that the Adelaide is going through a rental crisis at the moment. And majority of this reason is really being caused by the rent affordability that's actually going on all around Australia at the moment. Now, we are experiencing some reduced, the property prices in the eastern states are actually suffering a blow at the moment. And what happens with property investors when that happens is that they tend to increase the rent to cover their costs during these times, which means that would affect your rental affordability all across Australia. So if you think about it, if you're a current renter who is trying really hard to save for your first home, is this Labor policy actually going to help you purchase your first home? That's an interesting question for you to think about, isn't it? Now, the second big thing that the Labor government is trying to bring to, I guess, their aim is to stop investors purchasing, multiple properties when first home owners are struggling to buy their first one, is that they are going to reduce the capital gain tax discount down to 25%. Again, I'll rewind a little bit. I'll tell you how it works in the current policy. So currently, if you hold an investment property and you've had it for 12 months, if you sell it afterwards, you will get a capital gain tax discount of 50%. What the Labor government is trying to introduce is that they will reduce that 50% down to 25%, which means you will pay capital gain tax on 75%. Again, this is another policy to try and help first home owners, push them back to the level playing field as what the Labor government is trying to say. But again, like we said previously about the rent affordability, rental crisis that we have currently going on in Australia at the moment, we don't know, again, if this policy is actually going to help first home owners. So, these are the two big ones in accordance to what the Labor government is trying to bring out. The third group of people that are going to be quite crucial in this upcoming election is the small business owners. So, what is the Liberal government going to do for the current small business owners? Now, this was actually brought up previously in our last budget, so the 2018 budget. The Labor government is looking at reducing the company tax rate to 25%. Initially, the plan last year was to do it in 2028, 2029, but they are going to bring this forward as soon as 2022. So this is good news for those who are operating under a company structure at the moment. Those who are not operating under a company structure, so you could be a sole trader, you could be operating under a partnership or a trust, you will get something that we currently have, which is called the unincorporated small business tax offset. This is already in place. The 2018 tax return, we're already starting to see it in the 2018 tax return. Going forward, they are going to increase that discount to 13% in 2021 and 16% in 2022. This is obviously still capped at $1,000, but it will definitely help small business owners going forward. Now, this one is a good one. We actually see this going through the Parliament last week. The instant asset write-off up to $30,000 is now a law. So, which means if you are looking at currently closing off your financial year, this is a good time to think about it. This law will be in place regardless of which government is going to be elected in the upcoming election. And that instant write-off asset will be available till the 30th of June 2020. So that's good news for a business owner anyway. The other thing that the Liberal government is trying to do is to actually increase the access of this instant asset write-off for business that has an annual turnover of $50 million. So that will include more businesses going forward, which is again good news for businesses in Australia. What about the Labor government? Okay, so this is going to be interesting to explain. The Labor government is trying to introduce a tax on discretionary trusts at 30%. So currently in Australia, discretionary trust is not taxed. We're actually taxing on the beneficiaries instead of the trust itself. And a lot of business owners has been using this as a legitimate way to distribute income and hence reducing the tax that they have to pay to the tax office. Now, again, this is not going to only affect business owners. I think this is also going to affect any property investors that are looking to put their investment property in a trust. How is it going to work practically? This is one of the most heated arguments between accountants at the moment, but this is going to change how we structure business going forward and how we structure our investment property going forward. So, interesting policy, but we'll just keep an eye on it. The other one that the Labor government is bringing out, which is also pretty recent, is that they are going to cap the deduction on managing your tax affairs to $3,000, and those are the costs that you pay to your accountants. Now, this will definitely affect those trading in a sole trading position, partnership and trust. Currently, they're saying that it would not affect anyone that's trading in a company structure, but we won't know just yet. Those that are, again, like I said, sole trader, partnership, trust, keep an eye out on this. This is pretty significant. If you are paying more than $3,000 to accountants, which really, it does cover majority of the small businesses out there, this is going to be quite significant for you. The good news though, from Labor, is that they are trying to make the instant asset write-off a permanent policy. So currently with the Liberal government, they sort of extended it out every year, and every time during budget, they will give it another 12 months for the current policy, but the Labor government is trying to make this more of a permanent policy, which in my opinion, a pretty good thing to do because it will help you plan forward if you are a small business owner. So, there we go. That's our 3 groups of people that would get affected by the up and coming election on 18th of May. Is that right? Yeah. Look, today's discussion is purely based on tax and tax only. There are so many other policies that both governments are bringing, and obviously there are other parties as well. So make sure you read through carefully what each government is going to bring in the up and coming election. Make sure you know what is important to you and make the right decision before you cast your vote. So thank you for listening today. Have a good night, and I will see you next month. Cheers.